That's what you hear from like gardening experts. But also in an ecological sense, it makes much more sense. While here you have to use a lot of pesticides to get well, the things that you want there protected from insects that could harm it, and this is a bit more fragile. Um, so I'm slowly getting you into, sorry for the hard cut now, slowly getting you into the OpenIMIS world and slowly getting into the documentation part. If we look, and I always do it, like if we look at OpenIMIS as a garden, the community, the products that are growing in there, then we have a lot of different tasks. This is a value chain that I'm always pulling up whenever we're talking about products and how we develop OpenIMIS, like from the software side and also from the other materials that help understand the functionality of OpenIMIS and help to promote it. So we have as our core development business, we have development of the software. Then we have people who take that software and implement it, and then we have people who operate it in the field, and that is where we are getting our fruits, like the impacts in the health system or in the social protection system. And we have a lot of activities around that, supporting the core processes, which one of the examples we just saw from the communication management, but also like the whole management of the platforms and community management. There are so many different activities, and if you focus into the core processes, like what people do, you have a completely diverse set of target groups in your community that have a complete different way of thinking. So the developers, they take like very abstract tools, very mathematical, very well structured, and something that normal people don't really grasp what is happening here. They are taking those tools and they create something out of it that is more tangible for people who actually work on health insurance. And this tool is being taken by implementers that install it and localize it to the specific settings in a country. And those systems are being used by users and are being operated by local IT organizations. But you see, there's a lot of different, a lot of different mindsets and different working cultures that are being required from here to there. And that also means for the documentation that we have a lot of aspects on documentation, a lot of different understanding of what documentation is. Um, and when a developer needs a different set of documents than a user needs, obviously. And if we look at communication, they are somehow on a different level again. But we are all growing in the same garden, if you want. And we all have like products that come out of the community. And the question now is, how do we organize it? We have started the community, like these diagrams. They look very structured and very like well planned through and stuff like that. But in fact, that's not the way the community really grew. We started with a few areas like developing or defining the main committees and defining like tasks for the coordination desk. We set up a few platforms, and but that's where basically the planning stopped. And from there on, the people who were working on the things took over and just grew the things in their different corners of the garden the way they needed it. So long story short, when we talk about documentation, if you ask these people or these people, you will get different ideas of what documentation is. And the common reading is always, we can't find the documentation that we are looking for. And that is mainly because there is such a wealth in documentation in the wiki by now, and also on YouTube and on the web page, that you really if you just look for documentation, you can end up anywhere. You can end up in the space for the users. You can end up in something that was just designed for the general public. And the problem is really managing and guiding everyone through one single landing page. And that's the one that we have that we call the documentation landing page in the wiki. I'm not going to talk about the wiki, how to use it. There's a recording on YouTube. I'm not talking about the wiki and how to use it. There's a recording on YouTube which you can do, and we can have an update on that later on. But this page, what you're seeing right now on the screen, that is what we have set up as the documentation landing page. So whatever you want to find on documentation, from here you should find it. If you don't, then we'll have to see how to change maybe the looks and feels of it. And before I go through the details of the page, I want to go to the last chapter basically on that side, and you will see a lot of links pointing to different pages. And that actually, if we look at or get back to the picture of the garden, this is really more like a mess. But in fact, it's what you see as a result of a natural garden in the wiki. So the wiki basically is we plant seeds. We have pages where we maybe start with just a few words. We have a few directories where we pull together things from the wiki, and where we like plant empty sample pages for you to copy. And from there things grow. And like in the beginning we might have had 10 pages in the wiki, and now we have hundreds, and there's so much useful stuff in there. Now we really have to do the gardening. We have done the natural part, like letting things grow the way they were, and we were trying to cut a few paths in there. We were trying to like plant a few seeds here and there. We were trying to like crop the trees, and of course we're picking fruits. But if people ask us where do I find the potatoes, then yeah, you really have to know where they are. Otherwise, you will only find tomatoes or bananas. But it's difficult to really get there. So what we tried from this collection of links, it was basically Marco back then who did most of the work. From this collection of links, he just pulled together anything that he found that was worthwhile being called documentation, put this on the page, and then from there he created these curated section for different target groups, like depending on which is their intention. Like if you have never heard of OpenIMIS before, there are a few links. If you want to get more into a practical use case, there are a few links. And yeah, if you are more into the developer, he pulled together a few links. So, oh, this is for academia. Academia, it's a starting point already with a few links to that. This is a first start. I think it's a rough straightening out of the garden. Basically telling people, well, vegetables are over in that corner, fruits are on the opposite corner, flowers are somewhere in between. And but what's in there in detail, that is nothing that we can really plan or something that it's really community stuff. And we'd invite you to land on that page. Just I put it in the minutes. If you look at the link here, the subdomain docs.openimus.org is pointing to this page now. And the idea is that anything that you could think of as documentation, there should be an easy way from this page to get there. And I'm going to the top of that page now because that's what I consider as the essential documentation that, like, whoever wants to install software and run it and use it definitely always needs. That's the user manual. Remember, we had that one column in the value chain for the users. It's the installation guide for the ones implementing OpenIMIS, installing it, configuring it, maybe even having a starter guide on how to do like an implementation project as well. And the developer documentation. Those three types of docs, that's what you normally find in open source, especially open source software communities. And we also try to structure this a bit now. So most of that is dependent on the release. So we started freezing documentation along with every new release. So the main manual, user manual version is in the wiki. It's always open for corrections and everything. But every time we are starting into a new release phase, we are making a freeze of the manual as the status quo of the document as it was for the previous release. We are not yet doing it for the installation guide and the developer documents. For the installation guide, I'm hoping that we are getting there very soon. Developer documentation is a completely different story because it's in a different platform, which is linked to the code. And yeah, what Bare and me are trying to do now is like continuing that road and looking at the installation guides, what's in there, trying to find a way of how to get that release dependent. And we managed to do this for the manuals already. And for the developer documentation, we'll have to also go through. That's mainly run by the developers on GitHub. And it's there's a starting page for the developer documentation, but it's mainly really like linked to all the repositories which are in there. The developers, they always do their own documentation very close to the code that they are writing, and that's the most practical for them. But there's a lot of stuff on installation and use also, and we have to go a bit through and do some gardening and see which part of that we can move to the wiki. I think for bridging over to what George is going to do, I just want to switch to the user manual. As you can see, if I click here, that's the link that is opening up for the user manual. And here you see like that one is pointing to the web application because that's the only valid documentation that we have. And there's a lot of chapters. It's basically all of the user manual. So it looks like it is one huge document. But in fact, if you look at the details, the user manual consists of a lot of single wiki pages. Yeah, my computer is overloaded with so many things open right now. Yeah, okay, so that's what happens when you're going live. The essential thing that I'm saying, so you just on the previous page, you just saw the overview of all the content in one page, and this is a detailed page. And in the detailed page, you see a few more items. Obviously, only our navigation macro is no longer available. We'll have to fix that somehow. You see the content of that chapter, plus you see a box with links to other languages. That means whenever you find documentation, it is in a specific space for the language. So this manual, user manual, is placed in the OpenIMS knowledge base, but there's also a French knowledge base. So for the manual, most pages in the English knowledge base do have a corresponding page in the French language base, and you can access the other language version through this link box at the bottom. That's very much the system that is being used by Wikipedia. There you can also, well, each of the Wikipedias in all the language versions, they are independent, but they are cross-linking to the page in another language version, like in all the other language versions in that language box. It works well in Wikipedia because I have bots that will update that kind of stuff. Of course, you can always manually interfere. For us, we don't have the bots, so we have to rely on whenever someone is creating a French version of this manual page, then they do the linking manually, like have this link box on both of the pages in the wiki. I'm not going to go into the details on how to do that technically. If you're working on that and you would like to do that, we can create another session, maybe a deep dive one day, and talk about the technicalities on how to do that on the page. But that's just explaining a bit the concept. I talked about the knowledge base. There's more to it. Manual is one thing. There's an FAQ list, so there are pages with FAQs in there. There's a list of how-to articles. There's a glossary. We talked about that yesterday. So this is the OpenIMS glossary, where you find the definitions and the translations of words. And it is also set up in a multi-language way. So on each glossary page, you find a link to pages with the same term in other languages, and that is also in a link box. And if you, depending on what you want, if you want a dictionary, like translating terms from French to English, you can also go to this automatically created list of translations. Talking about the dictionary, this one is not linked to the language versions in Localize. There we also have to make some effort of gardening to synchronize the terminology in Localize with the ones that we have in the wiki and that we use for translations of documents. I'm looking a bit at the time. I spent a lot of time talking. I hope I didn't bore you so far. Let's get into practical things. That's just an overview, just like a bird's view of the garden that we are in. Again, we want to not do top-down planning of the whole thing. We're just gardening the things which are growing there anyway. We are a very diverse community. We have very diverse target groups, and there it is really difficult to force people into one way of documenting whatever they are. But we have to do a bit of gardening. Let me stop there.